Kia ora koutou. Welcome to our Policy and Projects Committee meeting Wednesday, the 19th of February. Welcome to those online and to everyone around the table. We'll open with our Karakia Timatanga. Everyone will be upstanding. Great. I te pai mōna. Waraki. Tēnā te hawhia paratahi whānau aiki. Thank you. Apologies. Conflicts of interest declaration. Public forum. No. Confirmation of the minutes. Do we have any matters arising from those minutes? I just had one that I've asked a question about, which was on page 10, that the rural advisory group, their recommendation that council identifies the funding to implement the forestry rate. And I just wanted to confirm that we are including that funding in our annual plan. And that is correct. We are including $30,000 towards that investigation in partnership with our other two councils.
Correct, Chair. The other two councils, South Island Upper and Masterton, have agreed to contribute funding to the tune of $30,000 each, and we will contribute. We will add $30,000 to our annual plan for next year. It won't trigger consultation. Neither Masterton nor South Wairarapa were willing to lead the project, however. Hoping to do the little bit in and somebody else would do it for them. We will have that conversation once we get through the planning process.
Thank you, Jeff. So it's left to the big boys again. So we've got one recommendation that the minutes of the Policy and Projects Committee meeting held on the 4th December 2024 are true and correct. I'm happy to move that. Thank you, Brian. Seconder. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to reports. And our fifth report is management and implementation update.
Good morning, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor Cretney, councillors, and those online. I'm standing in for Sarvesh today because he's still on leave. I'll take the report as read, and then I'll just highlight a few things that I think is significant. So as you would see, we've started the organic waste collection feasibility study. So Tonkin Taylor has been engaged to deliver that. So they're working away on that. Following the last committee meeting, there was a comment made about baleage wrapping. So Sarvesh has gone and did some digging. There are some opportunities in that space to dispose of the plastic, but as everything, it comes as at a cost. So that's also been included in the report. Yes. So back to you.
Thanks, Johannes. Questions?
Thank you, Johannes. My question is around the report on the farm baleage wrap. Is this report going to be shared with the Rural Advisory Group? Because kind of think that would be a logical step to gauge their feedback.
It's a very good recommendation, and we can make sure that it goes to the Rural Advisory Group.
Just as an observation, driving around the Wairarapa, there must be tons of this stuff. Compared with people going to enormous amounts of trouble to collect the tops off milk bottles and take them to pass them. One seems like a bigger problem than that.
Yeah. It all adds up. His Worship.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the report and specifically for covering off the farm baleage rates. I just think probably I'd like to sort of Cherry-Campbell suggests, I think the wider we can disseminate that information and promote it, the better. I think we're all aware that not every farmer out there has got a bin.
To be good for the livestock.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions?
I had one, it might be one that Sabesh would know the details of. It says that you've changed the bag supplier from eco bags to Office Max. Was that a price decision?
It was a price and quality decision and availability. It was just more practical to change the supplier.
The next one down was installing soft plastic recycling bins in Carterton. Where's that going to be?
It's a good question. That has not been finalised. We are working with, we are considering locations where we get the most effect, because you don't, so there's a few complexities with it, that you don't want it to be in an isolated area, then there's no use, but you also have to be, it needs to be in an area that it can be supervised to a degree, but also not create a nuisance. We are still working on identifying the most appropriate position for that.
Can council not work with the supermarket and have it tied in with New World?
It is one of the options that we are considering. But like I said, we're still working through that. We need buy-in from the supermarket for that. In the meantime, the facility is at the transfer station, so it is there.
Could be a great partnership with our iwi partners who have. I'm not sure if that's public knowledge yet.
Countdown and Masterton have one. So
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the owner of the
Yeah.
store, whether they are.
And the warehouse master didn't have one, but
Yeah,
it would be handy to have it in a place where lots of people go to every day.
getting the owners over the line, I guess.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I've just got one, just looking at the waste summary, kilos, recycled, glass, etc. It looks like we had a pretty good Christmas because we actually recycled 35,000 kgs of glass and only 29 kgs of landfill transfer station. So that's good. That's good results. They're all coming through.
Mm.
The recycling is going really well by the look of it.
Yeah, it is.
Can I just make a follow-up point on that waste summary? It would be really nice if we could have it comparing to like some previous months or like this time a year ago or something, because by itself it doesn't mean that much to me. It'd be really nice if I could see it in comparison. So what's actually happening.
It's a good recommendation. We can include that into the next report.
One, Johannes, just around the plus spec. Do you know if there's been an uptake of that with the agri recovery, which is the Wairarapa recovery sites for it? Do you know if there's been an uptake?
I will need to look into that. I can't say.
Just be good to know that. Or when it's raised at the Rural Advisory Group, just can ask the question around the table. How many are uptaking? Okay.
One. When's the just can you give us a bit more detail on the project planning and trial of polystyrene recycling with Palmerston North?
So that was still in very early stages. We haven't received any formal reporting back from the Wairarapa team, but they are investigating that further. So as soon as we have something tangible, we will bring it back to this committee.
Thank you.
No further questions, discussion? We have one recommendation that we receive the report. Councillor Cherry-Campbell's happy to move that, and his worship second. All in favour?
Right.
Okay. Carried. Good. Hey. 6.2, update on operational consents.
G.
Thank you.
Just before Jeet start, I would just like to comment on the name. So previously it was quite confusing. We had a resource consent update and then a consents update. So we just changed that to operational consent. So that is the consents that we require to operate our water services and just our services. So that's why it's called operational consents.
Good morning, everyone. So I've been working on with the operational concerns. So take the report as read, but a few highlights. We have 3 concerns that require renewals, and we are working on it. And a couple of them require an updated AE, especially the landfill consent. Last AE was done 10 years ago.
Can you maybe explain what the AE is?
Yeah, so AE is a assessment of environmental effects. So that gives us an idea what's going on with that particular topic or subject, or that for landfill and as the ground and the groundwater. So the last one was done 10 years ago. It definitely needs an update, and especially I had a back and forth with the Greater Wellington, and they also have what the previous officers have decided. So the latest update is that they require an AE to finalize the decision. But otherwise, major ones like wastewater, water, they're all going fine.
The process of obtaining an assessment, another AE, obviously that's a lot of work, is that all?
Yeah, definitely we need to engage an expert in it. So we are seeking quotes from different consultants for a reasonable pricing and their expertise. Yeah, so take a bit of time.
I'm sorry.
I had a question very similar to what Councillor Della's just asked with regards to the AE. Is that not something that you could utilise AI to do a bunch of that work for you? Because I know I've done an AE assessment myself through AI and it turned out pretty great and it worked. So I just wonder if there's something that council could be using to work faster, not harder in that regard. Because it's, if you have the previous AE, if you could input that into some fancy software, add a couple of details, you could probably have a report put together for yourself quite easily.
That's true and false from my perspective, because when it comes to AE, we need a thorough investigation, because a human needs to go onto the site and have a look. Yes, we can do that I can do it myself, but I don't know what type of AI, because usually AIs, they say they are not responsible for the information they provide. So if something backfires in the future, we cannot rely on AI to take the responsibility. So when we have consultants, they're licensed to do that, I think that'll cover for us.
If I may add, I believe everybody's growing in their capability of applying AI to complex problems, and I believe that there will be a balance between getting subject expert and applying AI where appropriate. But like Jeet highlighted, we need to be careful of the information that we provide and make sure that it's accurate and trustworthy.
And if I may add, I've also noticed that AI generates information based on the prompt given to the AI, because AI has its own limitations at this point. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. So if something significant,
it wouldn't be covered. Yeah.
But at the same time, when someone experienced do that, they have probably ill cover, and most of them might be.
Thank you.
Jeet, I just had a question under the summary of existing consents. Still states that council are requesting a 20-year consent, but further down, Greater Wellington have stated that due to over allocation, 5-year consent is only possible on the Kaipatangata renewal. I'm just wondering if with the risks associated with that, and I'm not sure of the total costs of the consent and everything surrounding that, is a business case being done on that, whether it's still worthwhile following through with that consenting process for only a 5-year consent, and then at the end of that 5 years, Greater Wellington would go, oh, you can only have it for 2 more years. Or I'm just curious as to the depth of the process you're going through at the moment, trying to get this consent, and it's only for 5 years.
If I may speak to that, Chair, when we apply for the resource consent, we apply based on what we deem as possible within the rules, and we then argue that case, and that's why we are going for the 20-year consent, and even though there's an indication of 5 years, we are still required to have a resource consent. So we have to go through the process, and for the specific consent, it has been overdue or stagnant for quite some time. But we're always considering the value for money or the cost benefit of doing an activity like that.
Practical question. Go live for local water done well is July 26th. Yeah. So this consent expired in 2013. We're still here in 2025, working through the process. And you've had that feedback from Greater Wellington. How much time and effort do we really want to be putting into this? I mean, practically, given that we won't own the asset in a year's time, what's the issue?
So from the beginning, that's a very good question. From the beginning of the reforms a few years ago, our approach has always been that we will operate our infrastructure and everything as if nothing will ever change. And we want to hand over the asset in the best possible condition and with the best operating procedures, everything that we can, whenever that happens. That served us very well when there was a change in legislation, and it was put out where some councils has deferred important decisions, and that came back to bite them, where we've carried on to deliver those services, and I think our community is better off for that. With regards to this, I believe that the individual, whether it's part of this current team or whether it's in Carterton District Council or potentially a new water service entity, it's highly likely that it will be the same individuals that's delivering that work. And then also the funds required to do that will also highly likely be transferred into the water service entity. So with that in mind, I believe it is a critical piece of work for us. And again, if we think of the community, then it's the right thing to pursue it. Obviously not drop everything else, but it is important to continue it.
Yeah, and understand and get all of that. But I'm looking at your other consents around assets that we will own in 1 year's time, like landfill and water races and swamp cleaning, that sort of thing. I mean, you've only got a limited number of staff, limited number of hours each week in terms of prioritising your work ethic. I assume you're looking at how best you utilise your people for the longer aim and for better return, better bang for the buck.
It does say on the Taratahi water race, following on from your point there, Ron, that the 2023 application with updated questions has been returned and that they are now awaiting decision and meetings with Greater Wellington. So it sounds like that consenting process, which is the water races and the swamp and things, are concluded. I'm just waiting back on feedback. So I guess that's one less.
That's a very good point. And with these with these applications and resource consents, they come with ebbs and flow. So they're not always all of them aren't always at the high tide of input from them. At sometimes some of those flows or ebbs align, which is not helpful. But for most of the time, they do come and go. So,
Thank you, Ernest. Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
Early on in this training, we had a reasonably large chunk of money set aside for investigating alternative water supplies for Carterton. And we decided, it was decided that wasn't going to be required within whatever 30 or 40 years, and therefore that amount of money disappeared out of the long-term plans. If we don't get a resource consent for the kite, does that means we've got to start looking quickly?
Not us.
Good. So that's a very good question. When we concluded that project and brought it to this table, the situation was that with the current state of play, we've got sufficient water till 2043. What we are confident about is that there are other options if we needed another supply. The recommendation was that we will monitor the assumptions or critical data of that informed that decision, or that it informed that output. And then when anything were to change in our environment, whether that's through legislation, resource consents, or, for instance, our demand is higher than what we modeled, then we can revisit that assessment, because depending on the factor that's changing will determine which is the most appropriate new source. So if that were to happen, then we can pick that up again and continue work on an alternative source.
Okay. Further questions, discussion on that report? Thanks, Chief. We've got one recommendation, and that's that we receive the report. I'm happy to move that. We have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ayling. All in favour? Against? Carried. Two. Item 6.3, major projects update.
Thank you, Chair. I will be presenting this paper on behalf of Cretney. Our project team of one is busy delivering projects, so I apologise for his absence. I'll take the report as read, and then I'll just highlight a few mistakes that I've made in the editing of the report. So if I can draw your attention to page 31 of the report. In the bottom, under the Waini Bridge design, I commented that the design was funded off better off funding, which is factually incorrect. It was funded in the previous LTP and then carried forward into this LTP. So that's just for the design process. My apologies for that. I also have to apologise for not having the financial information for the sewer network renewals. We are waiting for the escalation numbers, which is just our normal contract adjustments that comes in quarterly. Once we have that, you will have a full review of that section of work as well. So my apologies for not having that in there. I just didn't want to have estimated cost to complete for a project that's completed. That sounded like a bit silly to me.
The thing on 4.2 panels, I think that's December 24.
That's a very good catch. Yes, we completed it in 24, not in 25. My apologies.
Ahead of yourself there, Johannes.
Questions? Councillor Ayling.
I had a question with regards to the solar project. Will we in future have information come to this committee with the numbers and the benefits of having the solar panel?
Yes, it is our intention to bring that to the committee. We are finalising the buyback agreement with Mercury on how that looks and how that's presented. Currently, they've got billing challenges where it goes onto the same ICP where we obviously have a Mercury account. So we're just looking at how we can articulate that really well.
It'd be great information for us to see and circulate, I'm sure.
Definitely. Any questions? I've got one on the Pembroke to Belvedere, where it's mentioned in your report, Johannes, about an improvement less than usual in flow at the wastewater treatment plant. Just curious, I know in the articulated water network we have meters on some of the bigger pipes which highlight leak. Do we have any flow meters on our wastewater articulated network?
So that's a very good question, and then just want to explain of why we got to that conclusion. So normally during high rainfall events, we experience a significant inflow at the intake of the wastewater treatment plant. This year, so we had the rain in December, and then we've had some heavy rains in January as well. And normally during that type of events, we would see a significant surge down at the treatment plants. However, we have now noticed that that's not occurring. Now, at the same time, we've been doing other improvements on the network as well. So we don't have the same level of detail of flow on the entire network. Lawrence will probably be able to correct me, but we don't have flow meters on those manuals. No. We have thought about that. That was in the initial asset management plan. We did have that as a low risk project to be included, but currently our asset management plan and long-term plan focus on a high risk investment.
Yeah.
Just comment, it's also wastewater is a lot more difficult to measure because it only fills half the pipe in the bottom, so the accuracy is a lot less.
Yeah.
In terms of trying to retrofit, as well as other detritus comes down, which can affect the measurement.
Yeah.
Detritus, a word I haven't heard before. Further questions? His Worship.
Yeah. 4.7 by Henny Bridge design. Who's running it?
So our project team or the infrastructure team's managing the design process. So we oversaw the procurement process and is managing the designer.
So is that included is the staff time for that project included in the funding that was approved? Or is that on top of?
That would be on top of.
So where was the approval for that? The council signed off on $60,000 worth of funding, 5 towns trials at 20,000 a year, plus 200 and how many thousand, so they could get a bridge designed. I wasn't aware that council was to take on that responsibility.
I stand to be corrected, but my understanding was that council agreed that we would manage the project and lead and provide advice.
What's the likely cost to be now?
Because of the design input, the council staff time on that is quite low. Initial, I would say probably between $5,000 and $10,000 for the life of the design. Worst case scenario would,
which is small compared to the total project costs. Okay, the only other question is, was a business case, I noticed that council's management or staff, as I say, believe it will be an economic return to Carterton. Did they produce a business case with the cost benefit analysis? And is there a estimated cost for the bridge now, given it's quite a very, very large project now? What are we talking about?
So that's one of the outputs that will be delivered as part of the design. So they will, there would be the overarching design with a detailed cost estimate, which then gives the group the ability to go and seek funding. I believe at that time is where you would do the cost benefit analysis, would look at the economic viability of the project. That's also where you would do the environmental impact assessments. There's a lot of water to flow under this bridge.
Literally.
But I think what we are excited about is, so from an infrastructure perspective, we're excited about the engineering of this. So it's, for us, that's an exciting prospect. And then just blue sky thinking of it's about what this could do for the community. That's outside of my skill set, but I am personally, I'm excited about what this project could mean if it could be built.
Any update on when the tracks to and from the bridge are going to be built?
I'll probably point to Linda there.
Funding that we got through the long-term or the rollover from the last long-term plan, we only had the funding to do up to the design work.
Yeah.
So we've received our concept designs from our contractor for that design work, and they're just finalising some of the detail around that now. And then that will probably sit and wait until we've got the alignment with the bridge, and then we'll talk to the community group a little bit more around costing that. But high level costings have come in for the trail at this stage, not including some of the footbridges that are required, to be around $550,000.
Sounds fair. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. I would, like you say, Hannes, once that work is done, it'd be interesting to see what that cost benefit report looks like and economic return. Yeah.
So my understanding also is that the Carterton District Trails Trust, it's a tongue twister, are the ones that are undertaking the funding to construct the bridge. That's correct?
Yeah.
So it's not coming from the ratepayers.
No, that's
correct.
No, that's true. That's
yeah. So down to
Is that Carterton District Trails Trust?
Yeah, it's 4.7. It's the second to last line.
Not here, so
first paragraph.
Not 5 Town Trail. Okay. Look forward to seeing that.
Hannes, I just had a question on page 29, 4.5 on Brooklyn Road. And I'm just wondering if you can just provide a little bit of clarity for those who might read the report just into the figures that are written at the bottom of this.
This is a common theme, but my apologies for probably overcomplicating it and not providing enough clarity. We'll start by, we've got a long-term renewals program. So if we think of our asset management plan, we will renew asset reticulation every year. That's similar to roading. So in our current long-term plan, we have water network renewals planned and funded, and same for sewer, and that is indefinite into the future. Now, we've set up the contract in such a way that we can have forward works so that we can plan for the future, and that we have flexibility to complete a section of road without starting a procurement process again, a design process. So what that means is when we looked at so our next priority for water network renewals is Brooklyn Road. So we did the design for that section of network to be renewed. To renew that section of the network will cost us 2.39 million. That's the engineer's estimate as we stand today. So that is the whole section. In the 24-25 financial year, we have a budget of $1.94 million allocated for water network renewals. So with the contract that we have the flexibility to stop once we reach that budget. So in this case, we can stop the construction when we reach the rail corridor, and that would happen in around April. We anticipate that's with contingencies and everything. Then we will pick up the work again in the new financial year in July when we have a new or another network renewals budget for that financial year. In this case, $1.8 million. The cost, however, we do have the ability to, if we were to bring forward next financial year's budget, that construction can continue, and then likely, and this is quite bizarre, worst case scenario, complete in July, which will actually work really well because then we are in the new financial year. However, if everything goes according to plan and we don't need contingencies and everything aligns, we might finish this in June. So which creates a financial issue because now we've spent money that hasn't been approved for the financial year. So
But the invoice won't come till July.
that is a different complexity. That is a different matter altogether.
Question.
What we've highlighted here is this is what it is. I've put in that information there to provide context of what this could mean. We have also looked at how that budget is funded. So there is a possibility that we were to bring forward that $490,000 that we could complete this without any impacts on rates for next year. So does that answer the question?
Wasn't really a question.
Or the comment or the clarification?
Thank you. Yes, it does. Appreciate that, Your Honour. So the complexities of bringing that budget forward, it's potentially not going to impact rates, and we can finish that project early.
So why that is within our long-term plan, every budget has different ways of funding. So for network renewals, you typically fund that from your reserves, that's funded from the previous depreciation. You fund a portion of it from contributions, and then the balance is funded by loan. In this case, or anything that we loan fund this financial year has a knock-on effect on rates for the next financial year, as predicted in the long-term plan. Now, in this case, we believe, or based on how the next year is funded, there's sufficient funding from reserves and contributions to fund the $490,000 from that and not loan.
Further questions?
Just a request, yeah. Just I noticed on Brooklyn Road, water mains, Norman Avenue, Wainawa, on most of the other projects, there are a few numbers, but not on the bridge. We have those next one.
Yes, we can.
But just thank you for the explanation around where things are going. Sounds reasonable to me. Just some numbers would be really good so we can keep track of that.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Just while we're on Brooklyn Road, I've been keeping a reasonable eye on progress, etc., down there, and it's amazing progress that is going on down there, and the meters that they're achieving every day now that they're out of water tables, as in previous Lincoln Road one. It just shows you how progress can be done and from a good team of guys. So yeah, I think they're doing a really good job by the look of it to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ayling.
I just had a question with the Wainara processed water. I wonder if you can update us on how that's going and if it's tracking where it should be financially and progress wise.
So that so yes, we can give an update. Sorry, it's going extremely well. We've completed the reticulation section of it. The old pump house is being renovated to house the new pump station. We hope to sign contracts with Orders and Stevens this week, following quite an intense procurement process. Again, it came out fantastic. So again, very good outcome for the project. We are still tracking to complete this June, worst case scenario July, and that is just lead times with the specific pumps that we've requested. But other than that, it is everything is tracking really well. Every contractor that's been involved, the project team has been just exceptional.
Fantastic. And the budget's still looking happy?
Yes, the budget's looking happy. We are still within the approved budget.
Yeah.
Obviously, the cost estimate, that 2.76 million, included some contingency. We've used some of that contingency just with the normal contractual things that happen, simple variations. In renovation of the building, we find that we need to replace one of the beams that we didn't think about. But that's what we've allowed for, things like that to happen. But we're confident that we'll deliver it within that approved budget.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Lawrence.
I was just kind of talking about that. I was really encouraged by the photograph of the inside of the old storage tank. It's much tidier than I would have imagined if it never had been here for 20 years or something.
That's probably why it's so tidy.
And
Looks a lot bigger than it does from the outside too.
got a bloody hole.
Was that a question or?
No.
Yeah.
Do we have any further questions or discussion on those report? Please pass on my thanks to Chris though. It's great to see good progress being made on a lot of the projects we have. At the moment.
Really good having the photos too, like it's good visuals.
We have one recommendation, that's it, we've received the report. And Councillor Ayling, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 6.4, Water Operations Report. Lawrence. Open.
Right. There's not really a lot to sort of report. I'll take the report as read. Things are going along fairly smoothly. We did have one point, so I will say, we did have water detection in spring last year. So they found a number of leaks, including one which was to the transfer station, which we were able to repair, and that was using about 10% of the water leakage. Yeah, so that was a good sort of find and repair. And a few other ones which we were able to get ahead of summer. And I haven't really provided it, but we probably can in the future, is in terms of what the water usage is, which is looking fairly encouraging considering the dry weather we've got at the moment, even though we have had a little bit of rain. But we will be looking to change from the alternate days to a sprinkler ban today, just with the anticipated fine weather for the next few weeks and
anticipating an increase in demand, but it's more to do with our resource consent that we've got to demonstrate that we are managing demand. And rivers are still low, even though we have had some rain. There wasn't any in the hills, and there's been very minor, if nothing, in terms of actually flow increase.
Just before
sorry.
questions, I just want to add on to something that he's mentioned. That the reason why that leak detection is so significant is that we respond to every leak that is reported or we can visually see. The leak detection identifies the leaks that we can't see. So they go around and listen for flow and things. Why that is so important, if you consider our performance in percentage water leaks, is referring back to the alternative water source study. One of the options was to reduce water leakage. It is considered network renewal or leak removal or reducing is considered as an alternative water source altogether. So in that report, we used an assumption of 30% water loss. So we've recently reported on 13%. And then the team, Lawrence and his team, is actively going out to even make that lower, meaning that we are, in theory, establishing a small water source just through our practices.
Amazing.
Right.
We're not good to get down to single figures.
Well, in Germany, where they actively sort of do it, they get down to 1 or 2%.
Really,
A lot more intensive and expensive to deliver.
But I mean, that's, how does that, do we have any benchmark figures that we could have a look across other councils and you judge your own performance against best practice and you rate yourself based on how you're doing, but 13% seems to me like pretty remarkable figure to be down to when I hear figures from other councils.
So everybody reports in their annual performance reports.
Yeah.
So that is public knowledge, and I believe that's also reported at Tamarara.
We'll be coming up with an annual report. Hopefully, I think probably should be in the next couple of months. Which is across the country.
So we can include something on our water benchmarking report in the future.
I mean, some of those performance measures that we run, I guess you get good context if you're comparing yourself with other councils. I look at the service request data, and they're good numbers. But I think they're damn good. But it'd be nice to know how good.
Yep.
It's interesting because we've got the water meters, we're doing it slightly different to a lot of other councils. Yeah. In terms of we're doing a water balance in terms of how much we go put out into the network and how much we go to deliver to the customer. So it probably raises a bit of a blind spot in terms of the leak to the transfer station was known about in terms of the usage, but we just assumed, that's what the transfer station was using. Because it's not included in our leakage because it's going to the customer.
Right.
So the council is not council.
I think there's a clear separation between once we've delivered the water to the Toby. So we focus our water losses on this side of the Toby. What Lawrence is saying is we've identified a fault on one of our properties, and we probably need to just be more mindful of our own properties to just check our own water uses as well. So keep our own store intact. Yeah.
We don't need a bill.
Well, Earthcare do, no?
Just while we're talking about the leak, I think it's fantastic. Whether there's the fact that there's an increase in the service requests for water leaks, I think it's fantastic that the community are aware when they're driving around and they're pointing out water leaks all the time. I just think it's great. You've mentioned a number of the leaks have been identified on private property. when those are identified and it's through an account being sent out, at the same time, are those customers provided details of how they can apply for the remission?
It's still on the property owners. I'd have to check in terms of what the information is sent out, but they have to demonstrate that they've fixed the leak.
Yep.
And then we'll go along and do a check to make sure it is. I'm pretty sure that that is outlined, but that's something we can check.
Yep. Thank you. Just another question on the leak detection. Again, I think it's fantastic, incredible, really, that we're down at 13%. The flow meters that we mentioned about, flow meters that were installed on some of the big lines in the reticulator network, have they highlighted any areas of significance throughout the network? Those bigger flow meters?
Not as such, no, not at the moment.
Great. The questions on the report? Lawrence, I just wanted to ask a question about the commercial property on the main road, and just the option that you've mentioned, the options, but also you've mentioned in there about individual laterals, which are the owner's responsibility. Is that's only where it's to the point of their private property, isn't it? And then it becomes council property.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Except for if there's any blockage, they're still responsible for clearing those blockages, unless it is shown that it is an issue with the council lateral that's caused the blockage.
Okay. Thank you. Further questions or discussion for Lawrence? Great. Thanks, Lawrence. I think we have one recommendation that we received the report. Councillor Della, Councillor Cherry-Campbell, all in favour?
Aye.
Thanks. Carried. Thank you. 6.5, Ruamāhanga roads and corridor access. Johannes.
Chair. I'll take the report as read and just want to highlight two matters. As the team has been reporting that we are how can I say this? There's some really poor behavior out on the network with the street racers doing their thing like we had down at Miller Road. The problem is that is increasing significantly throughout the network. Now, even though the dollar figure in terms of damage is low at the moment, because it's really paint and it's damage of maybe a road sign. So it's getting up to probably a few $1,000s a month, which is not great. But I think there's obviously what could happen on our network, how much damage could be caused, and probably the frustration. Well, I can just imagine living next door to one of those areas. We also see that they're now starting to tag the road signs, which I'm not an expert in the field, but I would imagine that will just escalate poor behavior. So I just wanted to highlight to this community that this is a matter that our team's struggling with. We don't have the ability to enforce, but it is a frustration when we've just resealed an area or remarked an area to turn up to go out every Monday to go and clean up tires and damaged signs and stuff. It's just frustrating. And it's taking a lot of attention where there's areas where we should be focusing our attention to. The other matter is on the speed review that was concluded. So I did highlight the sequence of events. Officers has tried with NZTA to accept our previous plan as suitable, or giving us the ability to implement it. But the final feedback was that we can't implement it because the new rule requires further longer consultation, and it requires a business case for those changes as well. The only piece that we can implement is around schools and marae, which doesn't require. It requires an adjustment to our plan, but not a reconsultation as such. And then also there's the government has made funding available, so you can apply for funding similar to under the low cost, low risk banner. You can apply for subsidy to go through this process again. I wanted to raise that with the council or with the committee because I don't know what the appetite is to do that again if we've just done it a year ago without a result. So that is a frustration to the team. We've put a lot of effort into that, but the rules are the rules and the feedback is what it is at the moment. And then I'll take the report as read and open to questions.
There's also a lot of frustration out there. I get people asking me all the time, when are you've asked us, we told you, like I'm thinking up by Sparks and places like that people are expecting long overdue. I mean, the question is, surely if the government can just at will instruct Whakakotahi to or LTNZ to change the speeds on the open road, surely they can also instruct them to play nice with councils and let us get on with our job. The people don't want to be consulted again.
So that's what I argued as well, because for me, we were very specific on the road that we proposed changes to, because it took into consideration the change of land use, all those kind of things that's really aligned with the plan. And the response that they got is it probably aligns with the rule, yet your consultation was only for 4 weeks, not for 6 weeks. And therefore the advice is that we need to redo consultation and provide a business case for those changes.
Sorry, the funding that you mentioned, would that funding cover all of our costs? And is it guaranteed that we would get it?
So the funding will be in the subsidy. So you would require a council share. And we have to apply for that, and it will be like our LTP applications to NZTA. So I don't think anything is guaranteed. They might support it through subsidy, but at the same time we need to find council share if we wish to do that.
So just in the paragraph, you've mentioned how the new rule impacts Carterton. You've mentioned a cost-benefit analysis they're requesting. Is that as well as a business case? Because I see those as two different things.
It's the cost-benefit analysis will be part of the business case. So the activity of so I might have used poor language, but it's proving why this is required or why there's a benefit.
So the risk assessment fits into that and so forth.
But it will have to focus on cost as well. So we didn't particularly focus on that when we did our plan and our submission in the past, because we were working towards a plan that had different focus areas that aligned with the GPS of the time. So the motivation, the focus of the motivation was different.
Are other councils going through the same process, or have we just been caught in some loophole, or is this widespread?
So so this is for everybody. The councils that so some councils would be probably in in a worse off where they would have to change some speeds back. But also everybody will have to comply with the new rule.
Further questions or discussion? Because I've got a few things I want to say.
I
Councillor Ayling.
I had a question with regards to the boy races. Does that, the areas that are getting targeted often, does that get fed through to the police each time? Is that?
So we're going through, so part of our standard procedure now is that we report it to the police. They are limited to what they can do. But as for us as record, we are making them aware of these occurrences and where it's happening. And we've recently we found a bag with a name on it, so we've provided that to the police as well.
Yes.
The speed review, I find it really frustrating.
Slow down.
It's a political decision, and it probably might respond to a political response from
The new government.
from this governance, not necessarily from you. I noticed from the Times Age this morning that Ron's having some discussion with NZTA about the barriers.
Yeah,
Can you remind us in?
You're right. If I just said, Mr. Chair, that I'll start by complimenting you, Johannes and Jeff. I know that you've been dealing with a lot of emails in this space from frustrated residents and constituents who just want to see the speed plan enacted. And for some of them, I know from the correspondence, they are struggling to understand how it can be so difficult. And your explanations don't necessarily placate them, even though they're accurate and they're factual. So I just want to compliment you on the way you've been managing that, because I know everybody's frustrated. In response to your comment, Councillor Lawrence, I agree with you. The only way that we're going to get any movement from NZTA is from a strong political response. And so Gary Caffel and I have already agreed that we will set up a meeting. We'll seek a meeting with the Minister of Transport on a range of Waka Kotahi related matters. With respect to the boy races, I'm meeting with the area commander this afternoon on a number of matters, but we will be talking about that. I have sent through to you photographs of the intersection at Mannings and Brooklyn. And if you note on that giveaway sign, there is a tag on there.
Yep.
And that tag clearly identifies that particular group of boy racers. It's not an easy one for police. And I have to also put on the record that I know that there was a lot of noise. There must have been a lot of noise at that intersection on numerous occasions. I am told that they happened in the wee hours of the morning. There are a number of elderly residents in there, and there is no way in Hades that an elderly couple are going to walk out there and photograph boy racers' number plates or ask them to stop. The intimidation factor is just too high, and it's not worth the risk. So it is going to come down to a policing response. And I agree with you, Councillor Lawrence. This is one that I think some of us are just going to have to take up the chain.
Can I just say, we've had a tragedy in Martinborough very recently.
Yep.
On a stretch of road where it was proposed that the speed limit be reduced. And that is not saying that speed was involved. It's also not saying it wasn't. And the same thing could happen outside Sparks Park.
It could, what concerns me, eventually these idiot racers or clowns are going to get it wrong, and someone is going to get killed. And, I have huge sympathy for the police. They can only be in certain places if they know things are happening. It comes down to intelligence, and it also comes down to local residents just getting on a phone and ringing through and reporting to the police when this stuff is happening, if they hear it, if they see it. But it's frustrating. But, you know, I can only compliment management on the way in which they have conducted themselves on both issues. It's challenging, but we've got to work as a team.
In relation to you organising a meeting with the minister and you and Gary, I think it would be really great if elected members were also able to be part of that, because then we can feed back all the information, because we're getting calls all the time from residents and that. And then I've got kind of a little bit of a ask for forgiveness type question.
Yes.
After the effect. Would happen if potentially maybe some new speed signs were erected in a district around New Zealand? Are NZTA going to actually even know?
So the problem with that is the police's ability to enforce, because again, the larger community would accept that and would appreciate that. But it's a small percentage of individuals that would be caught out on that and would then make an issue of that. And because those speeds would not be legally enforceable, it would create a legal issue for police. I did ask the question of NZTA, so what? Anyway, they strongly encouraged me not to.
Mr. Chairman, through you, and could I just ask the question? I think communications is a big issue here. Our people have a right to know what's holding the plan up. We have a right to explain to our constituents and our residents and ratepayers why we haven't acted on the speed plan. And I know our comms team have got a hell of a lot on right now with annual plans and local water done well and resident surveys and everything of that nature. But it would be a good idea for us to start explaining on social media throughout reporting exactly what the hold-up is and exactly why council's hands are tied and what we are trying to do. That might help. So some people understand.
Someone watching might be able to help as well.
Well,
More changes from.
So we were still negotiating with NZTA last week, and so following our meeting with NZTA, this report, that's why this was introduced in the report. So it is fresh off the press.
Bureaucracy gone mad.
Been a lot of this time.
Thanks, everyone.
Steve, when we get to the recommendation, is it possible?
I'll let you do that when we get there. I'm in agreement with the comments that have been made around the table, and I just really feel for management and us as a collective for the hours that we've put into this speed review, along with our community. And Councillor Williams raised it many times how it's difficult to get community to engage, and when we do get to them engaged, all of a sudden we've got a government who are saying, oh no, we're going to change the rules, you're going to have to go back and engage again. I just think it's absolutely madness, and I can with Councillor Lawrence when he mentioned the devastating accident, and surely the Ministry of Transport and NZTA must look at their stance and accept that locals do know local roads. It's I think we seriously need to push back on NZTA and the Ministry of Transport for this. And
behind your desks.
I mean, how do you not get enough feedback within 4 weeks, and you need to extend that by 2 more to end up with a different result? I can't fathom that. So I just think it's bureaucratic nonsense, and you can see why local government rates just keep going up. All these costs of consultation and management's time, and it just keeps changing. Government keep changing the rules. So anyway, we have one recommendation.
Possibly two?
Can I just raise
Possibly two. We'll do the first one, Steve.
Just in terms of the report on Ruamāhanga roads, there was a section in there about bridges. It seemed a bit bothersome. To some of the feedback we've had from this. Can you comment on what the implications of that are? Yeah.
So, yes, Councillor Lawrence, following the publication of the report, I thought we could have probably wrote that section a little bit better. We annually investigate or inspect our bridge structures. It's on a program, so we have to inspect every bridge every 2 years with a general inspection and then a principal inspection every 6 years. So they're all on rotation. We do a portion of our network every year so that everything gets instructed or everything gets identified. The takeaway is that just like every other asset that we manage, we know that there's more work that is required that we have budget for. And in that, we prioritize the highest risks to be done, to be completed first. And that was what we tried to articulate, is that we can't in one financial year fix every fault that we are aware of. And so we prioritize. The report, so we've got the report. There's nothing major that would fall over tomorrow if we don't act immediately. We are managing that risk with the budgets that's been approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonas.
I did have a quick question as well, sorry, forgot to ask earlier. The contract that we have with Hogan / Ruamāhanga Roads, is that a public document?
So quick answer is no. However, we can disclose technical specifications and conditions of the contract.
Thank you.
So that is available. That was part of the tender document when it went out. So it's been public for quite some time.
The actual contract is not public. Thank you.
Really quick thing, promise. In the speed management plan, when you're talking about the schools and the rise, he put an early learning so that isn't open anymore. So you can probably take that on as a decent list.
We're looking at the holistic problem at the
Okay, cool. All good.
Yeah.
Nothing further. We have one recommendation.
I just want to repeat my earlier complaint. I was most upset that the roading team repaired a pothole before I had time to get my service request in. I was all set to fire it in, and Johannes's team were onto it so fast it was gone. Well done. Their response is great.
Yeah.
We have one recommendation. Well, there could be a second one. The first recommendation is that we received the report. I'm able to move that. We'll second it.
Yep.
Councillor Cherry-Campbell, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Councillor Lawrence, you'd like a second recommendation to be added?
For discussion, but I'd like to move that the mayor approach NZTA with a view to enabling us to implement the speed review that we've consulted on and approved.
On at length.
Probably,
I'm happy
for the Minister of Transport rather than. I think,
staff to staff. This is.
I think it's
Polly to Polly.
Yeah. So far, waiting for a seconder and well, I'll second it. So then we can
want to revise it.
Yeah.
The mayor approached the Minister of Transport to enable Carterton District Council to implement the speed review as consulted upon.
I think the best we could do is to highlight the frustrations and the problems we're encountering, and then ask him to do something about that. But I agree, all the evidence shows that I waste air talking to NZTA, and the only place where you can really make an impact you've got the strongest possibility is directly to the minister. So more than happy to do that if that's the committee's desire.
Do we have a seconder?
I think we're on second.
Okay, second by His Worship, all in favour of that motion?
Aye.
Recommendation. Against? Thank you, Lawrence. Okay, I think that's the end of our meeting. And to close, we will have the Karakia Whakamutunga. We can up to standing.
Kia whakae, tapu, kia rāte e kāra, kia tūki whakataha ai, kia tūki whakataha ai.
Hey, everybody, meeting closed.